second of our two workshops this afternoon around the Contested Spaces Interface project. And in the first workshop we heard from two of the projects, and in this workshop we're going to hear from three. So we've got Mark from the Achieving Personal Potential project, or the APP project, which is based around the Shankill area of North Belfast. And we've got Claire from Active Respective Communities, which is again North Belfast, and Moira Hughes from the Aspire programme in the same area. So these three projects are North and West Belfast. But I'm just going to give you a brief overview for those who weren't here in the first session, a bit about the Contested Spaces Interface programme. So when we say contested spaces or interface, those of you that are not from Northern Ireland, it's really about, I suppose, the Catholic or nationalist community and the Protestant or loyal community coming together in interface areas. So where those two communities meet, we call it interface, and contested space as well, so space around it. So this programme has been set up, and it's really to promote and improve relationships between and across disadvantaged communities across Northern Ireland, and those communities are around, as I said, contested spaces or interface areas. It's jointly funded, it's a £4 million project over 3 to 4 years now. So OFM DFM contributed £2 million and Atlantic Philanthropies contributed the other £2 million. It started in 2011 and there's been 2 cohorts. So the projects here today are the first 5 projects. And then there's another 4 projects that have recently started. And the key objective of the programme is to contribute to better outcomes for children, young people and families living in the areas of the projects. And there's 4 areas that the projects can apply under. So the first one was early years and parenting. The second one was shared space programmes delivered through schools. And the third one was around interface and youth engagement, and the fourth one was shared neighbourhood programmes targeted at families. So in the first phase of the project, we just had the first 3 areas, and we're going to hear from the projects that are involving young people, children, early years and parenting and shared space programmes. So we've got an example of each of those this afternoon. And in order to apply for the programme, there was 3 key criteria. Firstly, at least one community organisation from each side of the contested space interface area had to be involved. So one Catholic or nationalist organisation and one Protestant or loyalist, at least. But in many of the projects there's many more than that. And the groups applying also have to operate within the top 20% most deprived wards, according to the multiple deprivation measures 2010. And the multiple deprivation measures are standard measures used in Northern Ireland to measure deprivation, and the latest figures are from 2010. And the third criteria was an organisation with proven capacity in delivering outcomes in focus areas, so around early years, around young people, around shared communities. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome Mark. Mark is from the Achieving Personal Potential project, which is run by the Shankill Women's Centre in North Belfast.
Hello everyone, my name is Mark McFerrin. Thank you Sarah for the introduction and just sort of explaining a bit about what our projects are doing all together as a group and as an overall programme. I'll give you a bit of background as to how the APP project came about, how it was birthed, and then I'll talk about what we do with the young people and also some of the outcomes that we've seen since working with them. Initially the APP project came about from a conversation between the manager of the Shankill Women's Centre and a community outreach worker in a Catholic community nearby. And the sort of issue they were discussing was educational underachievement within their communities. And it was sort of felt from the manager of our Shankill Women's Centre that on the Protestant side there was a bit of a sort of decline in the educational achievement, and we felt that that was sort of just on that side. But throughout the discussion they sort of highlighted that it was a common need, I suppose, and we've heard that a lot in the presentations that have gone on previously, just about this common need. And so they sort of put their heads together and thought, well, what can we do to address this need? It wasn't so much thinking about how can we bring the two communities together for the purposes of just doing cross-community work, but actually there's a need in both the communities, and how can we address this where we do have that shared space and that shared learning environment. And that issue of common need is really integral, I think, to all the projects, because it's not just about doing cross-community work per se, and I know I've talked to a few people recently about cross-community work and how it's changed over the years, and whenever I was involved with it as a young person, it was sort of about going away on a residential with another group, and then maybe 6 months later seeing them again and doing some sort of workshop with them, and no real prolonged activity where you were seeing each other daily. And the difference with this project and the other ones that we're talking about is that the young people and the parents and everyone who's involved actually have this sustained contact with each other, where they are crossing the interfaces, where they are experiencing being in different areas where they're out of their comfort zone. And it's not just on a one-off basis, they're doing it every day, which is really great. But yeah, so that's where the app project sort of came out of that conversation. And so the funding came up from OFM, DFM and Atlantic, and it was just really suitable at the time that this happened that we could put this in place. So the project is called the APP project for short. It stands for Achieving Personal Potential. And I sort of believe the ethos behind that is not just tackling educational issues, but also the things that we do with them within the after schools context allows them to develop socially and emotionally and culturally as well, sort of understanding each other's commonalities and differences as well. So here are some of the project aims, just looking at what the project wants to do. Establishing a shared environment in which young people can learn, grow and develop. And that is done by, I suppose, bringing them together in a common place where they feel comfortable every day, running from Mondays through to Thursdays on an after-schools basis. The young people come together and meet with their counterparts from the other side, with their peers, and they have that chance to experience different things, to have help with their homework and support that way, and then just to grow and develop through social interactions as well. I believe in this really holistic approach, and I sort of touched on it already, it's not just about the educational, yes that is our focus, and that's our main goal, is to raise the achievement within these communities, but it's more to do with the personal and social and different experiences that the young person gets to develop as a whole person, not just educationally. And then the last point is just not to be another group for kids to join, but something that can be seen as essential in the community, as support for the community and for the families within it. And I think that's something we're really aiming to do. Hopefully by the end, the last point in the project, in the presentation should show you that. So just an overview of what we do then. We are an after schools group. We meet after schools on Mondays to Thursdays for 2 hours each day. And there are 2 age groups. The age groups that we work with would be 9 to 11, which is primary, the sort of upper years within primary schools, and then also 11 to 14, which would be your secondary school, post-primary. And that's sort of developed since the project started, because we've seen the need for a support within the community during the transition period from primary to post-primary, something that the kids could have as a stable, I suppose, rock while they're going through that change, which is a big change in the lives of, if you think, 10 and 11-year-olds to go into that different environment. So this was something that could support them throughout that. We work within 4 different areas, so although I'm based within the Shankill Women's Centre and in the offices there, actually the programme runs throughout North Belfast, all in interface areas, most of which are highlighted by a dividing wall, but one of which I'm going to show you a quick clip from soon, actually is just divided by a mini roundabout, but the people within the community know that one side of the community is above that roundabout and one side is below it, so there's very real barriers, even if it's just in the minds of people within those areas. The 2 key age groups I've talked about, and the focus about education, engagement and new experiences, I'll come back to you in a second. I'm just going to show you a quick video from one of our areas. Just before I play this, it's quite a funny video. You'll see sort of one of the after schools clubs in action, and this is the area actually that is just separated by the mini roundabout, and you'll hear a wee bit about that sort of dynamic as well during the video.
Skegnall, which is a largely Protestant unionist area, runs down towards the shore of Belfast Lough, and Glandore, which is regarded as mainly Catholic and nationalist, goes towards the Antrim Road. Skegnall comes from the Irish and means the Earl's Little Thorn Bush, after the Earl O'Neill. So the community centre in which we are based is called Thornbush. The after schools facility is a great asset as it allows parents to leave their children somewhere local where they know they're being looked after and are also having some fun.
Just want to remind you of our contract. Okay? Now, the first one is when someone is talking, others should listen. It's important that you listen when Sarah and I are talking to you or trying to explain things to you. Homeworks must be done. Some of you are coming in saying I don't have homework, and you do have homework.
And it always amazes me how quiet the place becomes once the kids get into their arts and crafts.
Apologies for the top of that video, it must have got corrupted or something on the member stick. So yeah, that's one of the areas that we work in within North Belfast, and that last clip there was of the kids on the mini roundabout. Obviously the road was closed off for the purposes of making that part of the video.
No check was harmed.
No check was harmed. But yeah, that's the sort of, it's a very, very small roundabout. You wouldn't really notice it because it's sort of on a straight part of the road and most people drive through it without realising they've gone through the roundabout. But it's a real dividing point for that community, and the centre that they meet in isn't far from that roundabout itself. Just a quick breakdown then of how the app project is, how the app project sort of breaks down numbers wise. Our targets really for the whole project overall will be around about 128 kids. 32 from each of the respective areas throughout North Belfast. Some of you might be aware of those different areas if you're international. They're sort of well spread out across the whole stretch of North Belfast. And then within each area, I've sort of highlighted the Shankill and Carrickhill area here, we have a group of 16 from primary and a group of 16 from the post-primary. And then they break down again. So that we try and keep the balance even. Sometimes it's not, because sometimes there's an uptake from a certain community that's higher, and so we don't want to turn anyone away. But we try and get an equal balance between it from the Catholic nationalist communities and the Protestant loyalist communities as well, of about 8 kids in each of the groups. So that's the breakdown for it. As you've seen in the video, I mean, the kids we work with are kids that really need the extra support and kids that sort of would be challenging kids. On the most part, there are great kids as well who are just there because they love it. But we do want to sort of provide it initially for those who in the deprived areas we're working in, who would struggle within school as an extra support within the community. I sort of came onto the project in September of last year. Another girl was running it the year prior to that. And when I came onto it, I sort of had ideas of how I wanted to develop it. And Eleanor sort of talked a bit about how she wanted to bring in older kids to work with the toddlers to get that sort of peer connection and sort of the mentoring scheme. And I sort of had the same thoughts for the after schools, because I know that we only sort of stretch up to the age of 14, so I wanted to give older kids who wouldn't necessarily want to be involved in after schools themselves the chance to come in and volunteer with us, get some work experience, be able to put things on their CV, or do work experience for things towards like Duke of Edinburgh and things like that, so they could come in and work with the kids and make that peer connection with them, and for the kids that in our after schools to look up to them and see, well, actually they've gone on in school, they're doing their A-levels, they're maybe going to go on to university, and they're doing things within the community now on a volunteering basis. And I'm thinking, well, I want to aspire to that as well, so giving the kids the opportunity to have that mentoring too. Engaging with the local feeder schools, I wanted to try and do that more effectively, and so at the very start of my post, I went out to the schools and I flyered and I talked to them about what we were offering within the community and how that could support the kids within their schools. And we hope to also develop that relationship with the schools where they can give us feedback on how the kids are improving educationally, whether it be through school reports or just individually saying, well, I know this kid's on the AMP project and they're outperforming people in their class or things like that. Encouraging our support staff. We have 2 support workers in each of the 4 areas, and they're with the kids every single day, for the 2 hours, and they're with them for the homework time, and they're with them for the second hour, which we have different facilitation and workshops for them. And we wanted to encourage the support workers to really get involved more and enhance their sort of skills base as well, work with the young people, and even doing things like arts and crafts and stuff off their own back to develop their relationships with the kids, because I think that's vital. They're the ones who are on the ground working with them every single day, and for them to have that relationship and rapport with the kids is such a, I think, focus for us to have, because at the end of the day, that's the thing that's going to bring them back if they enjoy the people who they're spending their time with. And then to create more opportunities to build relationships with the parents. So we hope to do that as well, and we have a couple of ideas as to how we're going to go about that. This is one of the ways of how we're trying to engage with the parents, because we don't get to see them sort of on a daily basis, making contact with them. But there is a Facebook group for the app project, and although a lot of the kids are too young to be on Facebook themselves, the parents are on it and have connected with the group, and so they're able to see sort of daily uploads of pictures and things that's going on in the different groups, and seeing their kids involved, interacting with others. This is just one comment from a parent who has said, "It's nice to see my master doing something other than playing the PlayStation." So although there is this sort of culture of kids going home from school and going straight onto the computer consoles and doing things just on their own, and maybe even being able to link up with friends over the internet and not having that sort of face-to-face social interaction, the app gives them something completely different and appeals to them as well, because they're with their friends in that face-to-face way. This was mentioned before as well, and Colin has sort of tried to encourage us to think about this more and more. And it's not just thinking about significant changes within our individual projects, but what is the most significant change? And there's 2 of them that I just want to talk about as I finish now. So this one comes from the group in Ballyston Neil. Again, another slightly funny story. Last year they were seen notoriously as a really bad group, behaviour-wise, really hard to work with from the support workers' point of view, and just a disaster. People wanted to avoid them. So what I did this year was I introduced different workshops, and one of those was a music workshop where there was a few guys who came who play in a band, who came in and did music tuition on guitar and on the drum kit, and they brought all the equipment and they did the workshops with them. And that area, I actually come from that area myself, and I know from attending the primary school in that area and from going to a secondary school in that area as well that access to music and music tuition was sort of, in my primary school, it didn't exist at all, and when I went to secondary school I sort of felt out of it because I hadn't had it previously, and so I didn't take it up. And so I thought this might be a good thing for us to provide in the community that the schools aren't, and so I thought we'll give it a go and see how it goes. And actually there was a great amount of engagement from the kids, and they were very motivated when they knew that the guys were coming to teach them the music. And so that, I suppose the second hour being the workshop time, gives the kids the motivation to get their homework out of the way and done, and gives them that focus to do that. So there was one kid in particular called Sonny. He's not in any of these pictures, but I'll show you just in a second. This was the guys doing the music workshops. This kid, Sonny, was, I suppose, the ringleader of this bad group of kids, and they sort of just followed suit from behaviour from him. And so if he was good, they were good, and if he was bad, they were bad. Sometimes it was very bad. But Sonny engaged really well with these guys. They sort of, I suppose they had a really good rapport with them when they went in. And Sonny was really, really keen to learn more, even outside of the app project. And so when he was home, he would practice. He would go onto Google and look up guitar chords and things like this. And then they had a different workshop at one point where they were making lanterns from willow sticks. And Sonny actually asked to have some of the willow sticks taped together so he could use them as drumsticks to practice his drumming. So this is actually from one of the support workers. They wrote, Sonny has been practicing his drums with willow sticks in the lantern making workshop, and also been practicing guitar skills throughout the week. So it showed that he had an enthusiasm, and this was giving him insight into something that maybe he would never have thought I'd be interested in this. But he was really interested in it and really took to it. And since then, his level of participation within the homework time has improved. This is Sonny on the far left. And this was actually a day I was up helping them out with their homeworks. And he said a few funny things to me. The first thing that he said was, "I'm not doing the drumming today until I get this homework finished." And in the next breath he said, "Oh, can you not just tell me the answers?" Because he thought that would make it end quicker. And I said, "No, we'll work them out together." But that was Sonny showing his enthusiasm for what was coming up in the next hour. And this is why I think it's a most significant change for us. Two of our project outcomes would be the development of new skills and the improved educational achievement and attainment. And so I think the development of new skills comes out of the music workshop. This is something that we have sparked an interest in a child. It might just be that one child, I don't know, it could be the whole group, it could be several members of that group. And that was something that we sort of shipped out around the 4 areas, so each of the areas got to experience those workshops. So who knows the sort of impact that that's had. And then sort of the educational attainment comes from the fact that the kids are motivated to get the homework part out of the way, to get it done, to get it completed, and then they reward themselves with the structured activity afterwards. And I suppose being a support within the community is the fact that the kids aren't having to go home then after they come and see us and do their homework. So it takes the pressure off the parents. They just have to maybe check over it and sign it off. But the kids have that out of the way, and then they can go home and get their dinner and go out and play and do what kids do. So I think it's really important that the things that we're doing within the community. This is one more, and I'll finish with this, one more significant change that happened just prior to Christmas, finishing for Christmas. There's a young girl in the Shankill and Carrickhill group, aged 10, who was listed on the Child Protection Register. And I didn't know this myself until I was approached by social services who had heard that she was involved with the app project after schools. So they came to me and they asked me would I be able to provide supporting evidence for the tribunal, which was coming up quite soon, to do with having her deregistered because they felt that there was progress. And so they wanted all aspects of things that she's involved with, be it school or different agencies that she's working with, and that her mother and father were working with as well. And so it was a new experience for me. I went along to tribunal and I gave evidence sort of just as to how she presents herself within the after schools, physically and socially and emotionally within the context of being with her peers. And recommendations are now in place to have her removed from the register, and that takes a period of time as well, but I sort of felt that just even us having that influence within that scope of a more generic within the community and within other social aspects and with different agencies gave us sort of a better structure and a better grasp on what we're doing within the community. And so I sort of see app now as not just being something that has been put in place and will somehow dissipate at some point, but something that for the parents is valuable for their child's well-being, not just educationally, but as I said before, in the social aspects and developing them holistically, but also by other agencies. We're now being approached by them to give them evidence and to help them support people within their community, and kids are being referred to us from things like social services as a support for them. And so I think that we're vital as a support for those vulnerable families and children within our communities. So that's the app project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. We're going to take questions at the end, just after the 3 presentations, if that's all right. So I'd now like to welcome Claire. Claire's from the Active Respectful Community, or the ARC project, and again in Belfast. Oh, sorry, Lisa.
That's all right. Don't worry. This is Claire's getting the presentation. We kept watching it with the last kind of after lunch and the wee done stuff. We were bribed with the sweet, chocolate sweet. So we have handouts of the PowerPoint links you're going to get. And we're not going to be able, you can't eat the one sweet, you can eat it now, or you can have two if you want. Not like my fellows did from this morning. So I'm going to give a quick overview and Thursday As Thursday, my name is Claire McFoy. I'm the project worker for the ARC project, which is Active Respectful Communities, our Learning Centre Centre. I'm going to give a brief overview of the project and the area, and then Lisa's going to give more the project and the programmes that we're running. The ARC project is a partnership programme that was originally running with 4 schools last year and now 6 schools this year. It stemmed from a programme that the 2 nursery schools had started themselves 16 years ago whenever the 2 principals met, and they have been working with a buddy scheme with children in each school, and they have paired them up and they've been visiting each other's schools and have class shares and going on trips. Community Relations in Schools, which is Lisa's the director of, came on board then 10 years ago. The nursery schools were 16 years altogether, and then they brought Lisa and Community Relations in Schools on board because they realised there were so many parents turning up to the events, and the parents was kind of standing about not doing anything. So we thought, how can we engage parents that's when they came on board, and then a lot of the parents have kind of been bombarding the feeder primary school saying, my children are doing this for a year, we're doing it for a year, and we want to do more, can you do anything about it? So that's whenever the contested space money came about. It was like, brilliant, we can jump on board with this, because they are so close, but with the problem with access, how can we come about for it? Just look at this here is just the 10th of North Belfast. For anyone who's not from North Belfast, as Mark was saying, it can be something small as a roundabout. Like Mark, I'm from North Belfast, so I know once you get to that fence there, that's a Protestant or Catholic area. But if you don't know, there is still really stark divisions. And like here, it's kind of showing, like here, in the middle of the street is one. Here in the Crumlin Road, it's kind of gate. So once you go through it, and it's so close, the school, you could walk through the gate here and down the road with the parents, but because that gate's closed, they can't. So it costs £150 for us to bus parents from one side to the other side. So that's why it's so good whenever the contested spaces money came about. North Belfast itself suffered the highest levels of violence in Northern Ireland throughout the whole Troubles. So that's why as well it's such a good area to try from such a young age to be getting on board and getting the cross-community programs running to try and, I suppose, I think it was one of the ones that maybe Eleanor said earlier, the parents want a better life for their children than what they had. Also, although we live in the peace process, with the interface areas, there's also quite a few, maybe minor issues that could just erupt again with the likes of the current flag issue or a marching issue or the Holy Cross debate of 2001. The main, as we were saying, the main peace walls that's also the main concern for us is the fact that there's no access to the schools. So it's the main point of where can we go after the money's here, as well for the sustainability of it all. Because the programs are brilliant and we're getting lots and lots of buy-in from. We're working with all the children in the nursery schools. We're working with primary 1s, primary 3s, primary 5, 6 and 7 on children only ones, and then we have the parent aspect, and then the residential, which they just going to talk about when we go into the project aims. So we also need like the sustainability of where we can go whenever there's no money afterwards.
Thanks, Claire. So I'm going to take you through a wee bit more about the specifics of the program, starting with the project aims. I suppose to say first of all, in terms of the planning for this is very much done in partnership with the schools, the principals, but actually the feedback from the parents over the 10 years that, 9 years at that point that we were involved with them, there definitely was a growing, I suppose, concern among the parents that all this work could stop, and I suppose their confidence had been built up and they felt that it would be a real loss if something hadn't been done to further the project into the primary schools and also create opportunities for, I suppose, parents to get together and have their voices heard in the community about, we do go into a lot about looking at the divisions and we explore those in sort of discussion workshops, but a big feed to the project as well is looking at what are the shared concerns. A lot of them, I suppose, coming out of the areas of multiple deprivation, so low educational attainment, I suppose confidence, teenage pregnancy. Now we don't delve into all of those, but the parents very much are looking at what is shared between the communities that is a commonality and that actually they would like to encourage some participation in, having their voices heard with local community development workers and politicians. So the project works on many levels, but first and foremost, in terms of project aims, we wanted to build relationships further between the schools as bodies, between the parents and the pupils, and to work towards common goals that have real and meaningful reconciliation outcomes. A big part of this project is, as we sort of constantly reinforce, is the work with the adults, whether they be parents, guardians, uncles, and actually quite a few grandparents we turn out to our programs as well. We want to encourage those lifelong learning, and we do this by offering community relations educational projects, so a lot of discussion-based projects where we get together in the room and I suppose share life experiences, what has brought people to a point where they're sitting in this room today. So looking at what's went well in life and what hasn't went well in life, and maybe, again, what stories do we share that bond us rather than just the things that divide us. There's lots of cross-community initiatives, different events, and training programs as well, very importantly, where you are getting that regular contact. So in our project is a mixture of, I suppose, a few contacts in a year for a particular group, but then we've programmed with parents and pupils meeting on a weekly basis. So I suppose we're trying to sort of have as big a variety of programs and activities as possible, because not all people can come out, or parents can come out for the longer training programs. So we try to run things that I suppose cater to the needs of the majority of people in the nursery school, parents, grandparents, etc. A big thing for us is the building of more peaceful and confident communities. Confidence, I suppose, been the operative word there. One of the big outcomes that we have found, and I'll talk more specifically later in our significant change story, is parents just finding the confidence to talk out, to be in a room with other adults and actually just talk about their life, talk about issues, just talking in a group. I think it's one of the biggest phobias people have. I think moving house is the second biggest one, but actually just speaking out. And as well for teachers, we've found, even though they're used to talking for the groups all the time with their kids, actually getting them together in joint training programs and having them speak to and about themselves can be actually a really nerve-wracking point. One of the big indicators of this is when we were residential, and one of the ladies who was on the programme was a doctor, and in her feedback at the end of the residential, she was absolutely, I suppose, she was, what would you say, overcome by the confidence that the parents had, and as she perceived it, she was like I'm a professional, I'm a doctor, and I'm used to talking to people all the time, but in this environment, I'm nervous and clammy, and actually it was the other parents showing her that they had the confidence to speak up, and she took a lot from that. I'm going into a bit of detail, so I'll backtrack and stick to her aims before I go on. In terms of our model, and I'm going to graciously thank Colin for helping us sort of figure this out, because myself and Claire are really stuck into the detail of the work on a daily basis. It's a really intensive programme, and it was, I suppose, difficult for us, but for me particularly, to get my head around what actually is our model. What are we trying to do? What are the activities and what are the outputs and outcomes? So I'll just run through this very quickly. In terms of activities, one of the most important things that staff in the schools and the classes are partnered together. So right throughout the 3 years, the same staff, albeit if they don't move into the year groups, are partnered together. And it's about creating that relationship with individuals, modelling that relationship, so when the kids come out, they can see the teachers having a bit of banter, having a bit of crack, actually having a good time together. As opposed to, as one of the ladies in the last group said, this trip mentality that I suppose used to be very common in cross-community schools work, where children would come out for an activity together, share a bus, but actually, if there was a peace line in the bus, you could say, one school at the back, one school at the front. And I've seen it because I've worked in this we supported some of that work for many years, but albeit our work was like discussion workshops. But you would actually see staff, and I don't think it was maybe consciously, but they would split and wouldn't really talk together during the workshop. They would take their kids outside of the room. So that modelling of good relationships and I suppose trusting each other we thought was integral to how this project should work. As I say, most of our work is built in around workshops and dialogue and interactive experiential learning activities. So learning through doing and experiencing and reflecting on that. All of our work in the schools is embedded within the personal development and mutual understanding aspect of the curriculum and citizenship, so PNMU. There's activities where there's parents and children doing work together, but crucially there's also activities where the parents, mentioned the bottom point here, dedicated programs for themselves. So on the back of your wee handbook there, you will see a wee flyer that details some of the programs offered only to parents and guardians of the children, because we thought it was important to back up what the children were doing in class and give the parents an opportunity to come together and explore similar issues, but also importantly to do things that they were interested in. So we would audit parents at the start of the year, and if they were most interested in picking up a new skill like photography, well, we would work to sort of get that in for them. Or if it was cooking, or if it was computers or literacy, we would make sure and really bring in whatever the most sought after needs were in terms of auditing and working with the parents at the very initial stages. As we've already mentioned, progression is a really key aspect of this, in that the programme starts in nursery and goes right from P1 to P7, and all of the themes and issues, as I say, are linked with the curriculum and follow that chart of learning. So, for example, in P1 we might look at friendship and what does respect for yourself and others look like. Nice, soft, gentle, I suppose positive learning experience for the kids at that level. But as we get up into the older groups, the kids are bringing up issues like going to the riots and the adrenaline rush that comes with that. They may not be involved, but they're certainly intrigued by what happens at the top of the road every year. So we would look at flags and symbols and identity, and I suppose encourage the children to look at the complexity of culture rather than this sort of very black and white sort of simplistic notion of them and us, and this is your flag and that's ours. So I suppose looking at the commonality through flags and symbols, and importantly looking at our history as well, which is cited as an area in Northern Ireland that is, not handled the best across the board. Rather it's a head in the sand sort of approach to our shared history. In terms of our outputs, as Claire said, we work with 100% of the nursery skills, so 104 children every year are involved in very regular contact. So the schools would actually swap classes, and staff from one school will go and teach in another school for the day, and that happens on like a monthly basis. Sometimes there's sort of fun activities built in around that, but actually more often it's just about going and learning in each other's schools and crossing over the road and crossing into the other community. Alongside that, sometimes, but not always, we would have parent programs. So the school is actually like a learning hub in the community, and it's encouraging, I suppose, what's been cited in recent policy documents around education as a school being the hub of the community, and encouraging that school as a place of not just education for children, but education for their parents and families as well. It's about holistic learning. It's about, as Mark was saying, not just educational attainment, but social and emotional development. Personal development for parents is a big one. The rollout into the community, and I suppose the enriching of what the kids are learning in the class is a major, I suppose, factor of the project. Last year we had 56 families participated in 3-day residential programs. That was 3 separate residentials, where the kids and parents or grandparents or guardians do work together in the first day and a half, and then we very much split them off, and we do separate programs that are dedicated to the different age groups. Within that, I suppose it's important to say, linking back to participants being involved in the design of the programs. We very much have a generic plan for going into residentials. We have a bit of a framework, but what we do is we work with what the parents or the participants raise in those workshops. And if it goes down a track that we weren't prepared for, well then we will be prepared to go down that track with the parents and encourage open discussion, and we facilitate that for the group. So very much it's about individual interests and needs and the issues that are prevalent to the people who are involved. The outcomes that we would cite so far are definitely the most important thing for us, about the sustainability of the relationships within the individuals and between the schools. I should just say, within the nursery programme, the principals worked very, I suppose, hard at the start of the year to buddy up individual children with each other. So I suppose they'll do a little bit of a personality test with the kids and match them up with a counterpart in the other school. Those kids are linked together for the whole year then, so they become, they get to know their buddy really well, and then that continues into the primary school. As I said, the outcomes in terms of home involvement, we are backing up some of the work that we do in the classroom with the parents. We've got some booklets here that we've got some we can give out for you to take away. We don't have one for everyone, but this is a booklet around looking at issues of symbols and identity. It was designed for teachers and practitioners in community relations, And actually the parents, once they seen it, wanted their hands on it after the residential experience because they wanted to, I suppose, encourage some further learning with their own kids at home. So it's that home and school link. Normalising contact, again, really important because these are areas where contact and crossing over the road, it doesn't happen that much. And it's about the school showing leadership in the area where maybe there is a lack of that. I'm going to flick on to, I suppose, look at our most significant change. We would definitely cite relationship building as one of the key things that will, beyond the funded timeline of this project, continue because the schools are committed to actually investing in each other and in the community. Because basically the kids are going to be meeting and see each other, albeit hopefully not around the roundabout where difficulties happen usually every summer. So friendships and trusting relationships, not just through the residentials but the programmes that run through the year. Just a few pictures. This is Corrymeela, where we use every year as a residential centre. I don't work for Corrymeela, but I definitely am an advocate of Corrymeela. I think it links in possibly to what Stuart Shanker was saying earlier about that sort of sense of calm and peace and tranquility. When the parents go up there, that is probably one of the most striking bits of feedback that we get from them. The peace and the calm and tranquility they feel, which encourages them to open up to each other, and of course, I suppose the safe space that we develop together through the workshops. This mum here in the middle is a mum who, on her celebration night after residential, we asked her to do a testimony amongst her experience of the residential. I'm not going into that too much detail, but just to say I think confidence is the main theme. She nearly killed us when we asked her would she be interested in doing it. But she said, interestingly, she didn't want to say no. She wanted to push herself to do that because she's a big believer in the work. She's seen the benefits for her own child and for herself having taken part. So rewarding and celebrating and affirming the work is a key aspect of this as well. So very quickly, because we're running out of time, the story of two mums, this would be what we've identified as one of our most significant stories. So within the residential programme, one of the things we do sort of when we're well into the dedicated sort of parents-only programme, we look at personal symbols of identity and do a bit of a life maps activity. When we were in one of the small groups, one of the mums was, I suppose it can be quite emotional, it is an emotional space, but a space where emotion is welcomed and not to be sort of embarrassed about. One mum was very touched, actually it was Angela who I referred to earlier during the testimony, at the honesty and bravery of another mum and what she had shared and what she'd gone through. It very much is a space where a lot of the parents do open up about what they have experienced directly in terms of growing up in those areas and seeing and facing some of the things that went on. Again, we're not trained counsellors and we never, propose to be anything like that. But what very naturally happens is that the parents take on a supporting role for each other outside of the facilitated work. So those relationships and that openness and that space to build those, and as I say, what comes out very much is just life. What goes on in life that's tricky, never mind all this sectarianism stuff. What's just difficult about living in these communities, albeit they love and they're very proud of them, but what is difficult about the places that they live in. At the celebration events that I was referred to earlier, one of the mums from this story actually wrote a very personal letter to the other mum and had some religious artefacts in it, because we were looking at religious and political and cultural symbols of identity in the programme as well. And there was a great sort of intrigue and curiosity around that, so this mum took a wee package with lots of artefacts in it. And actually what ended up happening as a result of that, the mum from Ardoyne chaperoned the mum from the more Protestant area to a monastery where there's a series of special masses called Novena. And quote is, I also want to know what goes on in there, and great curiosity because it's not that far away from where the communities are. So I think that chaperoning and trust allowed for a new experience that probably wouldn't have happened otherwise. And we're seeing more and more of that, parents taking each other to go shopping. There's not much shopping in Ardoyne, but in Ashankel it's meant to be known for a great shopping area. So for us, it's what happens outside of the programmes is probably even more important than what happens within the programmes. People taking responsibility for developing something together. So why is this story significant? Well, it's about personal and real friendships outside the programmes, as I said. Parents that are sharing maybe some religious ceremonies together and having their children play together outside the programmes. There's certainly a lot of trust developed and safety in each other's community outside of the school environment. What tends to happen is parents, once we do a lot of work in the school, they get nervous once we say, well, we can't, there's too many, so we need to book like a community centre. There's usually a bit of an increased anxiety around that because the school becomes sort of known as this place that we go to. So it's about encouraging them maybe to use other areas in the community as well, and not just see the school as a safe place, but maybe the community as a safe place for them to be. And very much this is about, I suppose, a cathartic release for parents, recognising the issues they face are very similar, and it is more about what they have that unites them than what they have that divides them. Again, this is, I suppose, taking some responsibility for their friendships, I suppose, meeting together and arranging social nights out. Colin got a good flavour of this on our celebration night. It was a wee bit of a, definitely was an energetic night. But yeah, parents going out afterwards and just sharing the city together, which is what I think we're all about, shared space, shared city. Yeah. In terms of sustainability, how we see this programme being sustained beyond a very generous funding package is the relationships between the Board of Governors, the senior staff, and actually all the staff in the schools, particularly the non-teaching staff, who are dedicated often to kids who are really, I suppose, suffering from different conditions, from behavioural issues, from emotional issues. So it's about engaging the whole school community, the whole school community approach. It's about sharing practice and resources with each other. So schools are already thinking ahead, going, okay, we can meet each other for so many times in the year. That gate is an issue because otherwise we could walk to each other's schools, but as Clara said, it's very expensive to walk around the back of the community and out around the other side. So looking at ICT and FaceTime and Skyping, there we go. Getting the kids to Skype each other, so actually there can be more meaningful contact outside of those face-to-face, albeit really important. We'd rather that to be the case all the time, but utilising ICT. So staff are going and training each other, just taking that off the Royal Account training staff in the other schools so that we can prepare for post-March 2014 when the funding of the programme will stop. We've already mentioned the access issue of the gate. Not that we are advocates for putting in peace walls, because we know it's a massive piece of work and it involves, I don't live, well I do live beside a peace wall, but not that one. So it's not my call to say that gate should be open, but what the parents want to do is come together in a forum to say, listen, could we have that gate open for 15 minutes at 9 o'clock in the morning so we can walk through, and maybe at 3 o'clock so we can walk back, but not open the gates, because that's a massive, long, in-depth, very complex process. So we're not advocating that. There's some little quotes there, maybe I'll just let you read yourself, from focus groups that we did with parents there back in November. I think what gives the parents a sense of hope and confidence is that they are having, or what's been developed is a sense of belonging to shaping something better for their communities. And that is definitely regardless of background or economic situation or education or whatever, that is creating a bit of a drive where parents are having the confidence to go, get that community worker down here and get that politician, and we want to speak to them, so we're going to work with them to help them learn how a forum works and how they can sort of manage that system themselves once we are out of the picture. And what's we're really excited about is in April this year, we're going to be launching a model of practice. We've been, I suppose it's our work over the last 10 years and the nurseries prior to that for 5 years, but basically how this model has come about, how it has spread into the primary schools, and actually what are the mechanics of it. What's the mechanics of it, what's the vision behind it, how is it operated. So we're going to be launching that in Belfast City Hall, and I can say that now because I just met it yesterday, we have that venue, in April 2013. So it's a massive night of celebration and success, and it will be very much about affirming the parents for their driving role within this process.